the underlying, I would say, like attributes that you have to have as a man to be successful as a SWAT officer, as a father, as a husband, are the same things you have to have as a business owner, man. Like you have to have the ability to not quit. You have to have the ability to carry heavy burdens and do that over a long period of time. You have to have the ability to want to see things through from where you start to the end to get there. And you also have to understand, like, there's never really an end. Like, you are just continually to keep on working and trying to progress and trying to get better and trying to improve your quality of life until you get there. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Justin Walker. I'm super excited to bring back Man Minutes. So this is gonna be our first episode. I'm excited to get it going. It's a super passion project of mine, and I think it can add a lot of value and just kind of show that we're all in kind of the same boat sometimes, and just share some knowledge, share some of my things, and go from there. So for those of you that don't know, the Man Minutes podcast is something I started quite a while back. I think we did about 50 episodes, but we've taken a big break. Life gets crazy. I've been really focusing on blades. I retired from the SWAT team. So there's been a lot that has happened since then to now. And I've been wanting to start this back up for a while. So here we are. So just reintroducing myself, right? I spent almost all of my career working for the City of Phoenix Police Department, and I spent that on our SWAT team. I was an entry guy. I was a sniper. Did all sorts of different things. And that career was an amazing experience, and it taught me a lot of stuff. But besides my career, right, there's a lot of other things that are more important to me than that. My faith is super important to me. It's not something I grew up with, but you'll find that intertwined, and you'll see that probably glimpses of that a lot in these episodes, in these podcasts. My family is why I do what I do. Right? They are the reason I work hard. They're the reason I try to achieve excellence. They are the reason that I have discipline day in and day out, is to show them what is possible and to provide the best for them. I have a wife that I've known since I was in 7th grade, so a really long time. We've actually been dating all the way since high school. Since we were 17 years old, we've been together. Got married when we were 24, and we've been married for 18 years. She's an amazing, amazing woman. Amanda is like my rock, man. She is everything to me. I got 2 amazing kiddos. One's going in high school. The other one is going into 7th grade. And dude, like it's such a blessing to have them in my life, to be able to model for them. And they keep me in check, right? That's something that we'll talk about too, is like how your kids, if you're doing things right, like you are going to learn as much from your kids as you learn from them. So something I want to dive into and just kind of start things off with is hey, like, I get where you're coming from. A lot of us have been in the same shoes, but a lot of us choose to not talk about it. A lot of us choose to ignore our struggles, to like press those things down, to not bring them up, to act like everything's fine, right? That's the world of social media, the world of all these other things that you see and that you're constantly consuming. A lot of it's just happy stuff. A lot of it looks great. A lot of it is cool guns, awesome knives, awesome vacations, awesome trips on the beach, doing this, doing that. But no one really wants to talk about like the stuff that men go through, the struggles that we all have, the stuff that we can all relate to. I'm not super into talking about like deep feelings. Like, I don't think that's not me, as far as like constantly talking about them, but like struggles, concerns, like how to work through things, like that's my jam. I like talking to dudes about that. I like sharing what I've been through. I like bringing out ideas and concepts that I've learned, because this has been a study for me for a long time, man. I've been trying to get myself to progress from where I started to move on through and just try to learn it and get better. Like, I think we all want to get better. I don't know any guys out there that sit in the dark on their bed at night that just want to stay status quo, that they're 100% happy with where they are. that they won't want anything to change, that they don't want to be better at anything they're doing. They just want to stay where they're at. So I'll just kind of ask you, man, like, is that what you want? Do you want to remain where you are, or do you want to provide info and to learn and to gather knowledge and to practice on how to get better and move forward in your life? And that's what Man Minutes is about. I started consuming content. I started listening to podcasts. I started watching videos, all this stuff like many years ago, right? And for me, I just couldn't find a lot of like just content for dudes, like dudes like me, like guys that have been through some stuff, guys that have seen some things, guys that have had to do some things. And then they still have to go back home and raise their kids and be with their wife. I haven't found that. I found a lot of stuff on motivation. I found a lot of stuff on running businesses. I found a lot of stuff on like the exciting times of life, but not just the general big mess that sometimes it can create. And so that's always been my goal with Man Minutes, is to do that. And that's why we're starting it back up. I've learned a ton of stuff for the last couple years. And I think that can help. And the interaction, the community that it builds, the questions I get, the stories I get to hear from people, the interactions I get to have with all sorts of different people I work with, my buddy Mike that's doing this stuff right now with me, like just being able to talk and share and get down into that stuff, man, it's good for you. I'm not saying you have to sit there and cry around a campfire all the time. Like, not that I don't do that. I do that plenty. I'm super emotional. Tear up at church freaking every weekend. But just to have a place to listen, to go to relate to, is why we're doing this show. So for me, right, like I'm just going to kind of tell you about my story, right? I grew up in Arizona, kind of been here almost my whole life. Had an awesome childhood, really, up until about I was 10, man. And my dad passed away kind of out of nowhere. He had a heart attack one night. I found him. Remember my mom doing CPR on him. I remember the firefighters coming to the house, transporting to the hospital. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember getting to the hospital. Some of our family friends were there, and they had taken us for a walk. Like I remember, like we were walking to a vending machine or something. And I remember turning around and seeing like a doctor going into a waiting room where my mom was. And I could see like through the glass, I could just see my mom, like the emotion and her start to break down. And that's when I knew like it wasn't going to be a good thing. So that was on December 20th, just a few days before Christmas. And I was 10, man, and that was life-changing. My dad was awesome. Like we hunted, we fished. He was like a man's man. He was in the Air Force. He worked for the post office for a really long time. And he was just like a guy's guy, man. Like he knew how to fix everything. He knew how to build everything. Gosh, man, I feel like he only wore either like white t-shirts, like white undershirts, or button-up shirts, right? Always had his pants tucked in, always had jeans on, always had his boots on, always had his pack of cigarettes in his pocket. Like that's just who he was. But he was just like he was that generation to a T, man. He was born in 1940, so he was older when he had me and my brother. But that was a life-changing experience for us, man. My brother was 3 years older than me. So you go from being 10 years old, him being 13, to, hey, now like there's no dad. And it creates a lot of different emotion, man. It's hard. And 5 days later is Christmas, and you're a 10-year-old, right? So you want to be excited because it's Christmas. And there was times where I was, but then there was times where my little brain was also like, I feel guilty for being excited because I don't know how to process and handle these emotions. And a lot of that stuff like holds true sometimes for me still today. Like I'll be doing things or I'll be involved and it kind of just throws me off and it takes me back. So that happens when I'm 10 years old. It's a new norm for us, man. My mom has to go back. My mom has to go to work. She wasn't working before. Financial hardships, all sorts of stuff. My mom was an amazing, amazing woman, man. Like she worked her ass off for us. Like if you were to be thrust into that situation, like I can't imagine someone doing a better job with kind of what she was dealt, and she was awesome. And to this day, like, yeah, I am so, so grateful that she is my mom and I was blessed to have her. But moving on through life, right? So now I'm in 10th grade, I'm 10 years old, I'm in 5th grade, like coming back after Christmas break, super weird. Like everyone's acting really weird around you because they know what happened. Everyone knows that your dad died over Christmas break and they don't know how to act, right? So they don't know if it's okay to like, hey, do you want to come play with us? Hey, do you want to talk? Hey, like everything's real weird. I probably started acting out a little bit, man, trying to deal with some things. I remember getting sent to the principal's office quite a few times with that teacher at that point. And it just kind of started a different tone for me, man. I think it hardened me up a little bit for sure. I know it makes you grow up pretty quick. Like you're dealing with stuff that you shouldn't have to deal with at 10, right? At this time, like this isn't the 1200s, right? Where like being 10, you're like a man. It's a different age then. So figuring those things out, the new norm, right? I have some amazing uncles that filled that void for me that were there, like, and they were just awesome. Like they were good dudes. So I still had good men in my life, which was a huge blessing. So go to high school. As I'm getting older, right? Start playing football. That was I played baseball all the way up to high school, start playing football in high school. And like, that's my new passion, man. That is what I love to do. Start really getting involved in that. And then something that happened prior to that is, right, I met my wife, Amanda, in 7th grade. Like we weren't super close. We just had some classes together. I think she was like going out with like a different boy at the time. And I remember like talking to her outside of our middle school and being like, are you so-and-so's girlfriend? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, not for long you are. But I remember that in my brain, man. Met her, we became best friends, talked all the time, going into like 8th grade, freshman year. So find football, get into that, like always been athletic, really start succeeding at that, end up going through high school. It's a blur, a lot of you guys know. And it was a good time for me, man. Like high school was a good place to be. Still had struggles, right? Like it was every time you have an event or something and you see somebody else with their dad, like it just brings that stuff back up. You're like, gosh, man, like I wish he could be here to see this. I wish he could have been here to see this or watch my games or do these things. What's important to you at the time? But still there's some hardships there, man. Think about those things. Not having someone to go to talk about certain things when you're a teenage boy is not awesome. And you don't really progress through that, I think, like until you choose to, until you're old enough to realize you're not and choose to do that. So play football. I'm blessed enough to be good enough and have good enough seasons that I get to go play in college a little bit. Kind of end up traveling all over the place for college. Go to a couple of different colleges, end up getting hurt, have a couple surgeries, return, play another season, and end up getting hurt again, hurt my neck. And kind of that was the end of football for me. And it was another thing where I just felt like I kind of got, honestly, angry at God. Like, I didn't even really have the ability to kind of talk about that stuff before. But I knew after my dad passed away, that was the truth, man. It pushed me from ever thinking that there was a higher being that had my best interests at heart. And then when football happened, like that's all I wanted to do, man. Like I wanted to play football. I wanted to play college football. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to try to make it to the league and see what could happen. And I felt like that was taken away. So now in my brain, right, I'm getting a very victim mentality because I'm 21, 22 at the time, 21. And it's like a poor me, like, gosh, man, like things are so hard. I lost my dad. Now I'm losing football. Like what else could go wrong? Not knowing like, hey man, this is the plan all along. Right. So again, I'm still with, my girlfriend, now my wife, Amanda, this whole time. She's awesome. Like we have an amazing relationship throughout this all. Started out at a very young age, like talking about what's best for us. And something that we have always done in our relationship is be very like open and candid with each other. And just understand things and like, hey, like she would call me out like, hey, I think you're making this into a bigger thing than it's not. I think you got to understand these things and do those things. And she was really like my person that I could always lean on and go to with this stuff. So I ended up coming back, ended up finishing up my degree, started applying to actually go into the military, look at some different officer routes. I had a buddy that had gone through an officer route with the Marine Corps. I talked to him a little bit about it, looked into ROTC, but some of my injuries were found as like going through the process, going through some of the physicals and MEPS, like precluded me from some of those officer programs. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of had no clue. We had a good family friend at the time that worked for Phoenix Police Department. He was a lieutenant of the K-9 unit. My wife actually worked for his family, and he just kind of like threw it out like, hey, what about being a cop, man? Like, does that interest you? You could do an internship. You can come with me. You can come in, ride with the K-9 unit and the SWAT team like once a week, see if you like that. And I knew that was the stuff I liked, right? I loved guns. I grew up hunting, shooting, just love watching like war movies, man, like old school freaking Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, like Delta Force with Chuck Norris, like all sorts of like old school, cool kind of like war type movies. And John Wayne, dude. If like you don't like old school Western John Wayne movies, I don't know if this podcast will be for you, man. I just don't know what to tell you. But it was at that point where I was like, okay, man, I'll give this law enforcement thing a shot. Like I'll see what it's about. So I ended up getting an internship set up through Arizona State University at the time. Get engaged to Amanda. So things are looking good, man. I have this internship set up. I'm able to go in. I'm going on ride-alongs pretty much like once a week, either with City of Phoenix SWAT team, the Special Assignments unit, or the K-9 unit, doing all sorts of stuff, man. I'm like, this is awesome. This is super cool. I really, really like this. Graduate from ASU. Start applying with some police departments, have some hard times with the Phoenix process up on the get-go, and it was just another roadblock. Like, end up having some issues, hiring process gets drawn out, apply with some other departments, end up getting offers of employment for them, but I really wanted to work for Phoenix, so I kind of held out and it ended up working out. Get hired, become a cop, go through the academy, all those things. And it was cool at the time to like, in your brain, you're finally thinking like, hey man, like I'm on the right path, if that makes sense. Like I'm starting to feel like I am where I'm supposed to be. Like, of course I was still upset about football, upset about other things, but like that was the first time I really felt like, hey, like things are working out. I'm engaged, about to get married. I've graduated the police academy. Things are looking good. Do good in the academy. I end up going to our Maryvale precinct. That's where I got to pick to go, kind of got assigned to go. And it was awesome, man. Became a patrol cop. But the whole time I knew I wanted to make it to our SWAT team, to SAU, Special Assignments Unit. That was just the goal I had. Work hard, do my couple years on patrol, right? You got to work through your patrol, and it was a blast. I had such a fun time. Worked with an awesome group of guys and girls, working third shifts in 800 is what Maryvale is called. That's the precinct designator. And it was just a blast, man. Like lots of fun, but also like a lot of rough stuff too, man. Like you see some things as a new cop that you think you're old because you got a gun, you're in a patrol car. I was 23 at the time, I think, when I first got on the streets. My dad had passed away. I've had some hardships with football. I feel like I have like a pretty good grasp on stuff, man. And then you get out there and dude, you can see some of the worst of humanity in people real quick. I remember like one of my first weeks on FTO, went to a crazy double homicide, murder-suicide, and I was just like, what is going on here? Like this was crazy. Like I just saw a man kill someone, kill himself. It's a lot. And you just kind of go through it. It's just another call and then you're off to the next call. And I think that's something that you'll see in this podcast is like that accumulation of events, right? We don't talk about that a lot. It's sometimes we think it's just one event or one thing that gets you feeling a certain way, but it's a continual exposure to these things. So have those things and it's like, gosh, man, like this world's crazy. Like this is nuts. Like I did not expect to see some of these things. You see child abuse, you see neglect, you see domestic violence, you see car accidents that are just horrifically violent, and you see a lot of that stuff. And there's not a lot of info on the time on like how to process it. That's 20 years ago, right? I think we do a much better job now, but it was something that I think brought up some of my old stuff from a kid, from my dad. Like I didn't know how to combine all that and like deal with it. I was very good at just like shoving emotions down, man. Like I had that down to a pat. So spend some time on patrol, make it to one of our neighborhood enforcement teams. It's kind of like a half plainclothes, half patrol unit. And then when the 3-year marks hit, I'm able to test for our special assignments unit. Go through that testing process, or I know I'm going to be testing, right? I know the test is coming up. Been studying for it. Amanda's been helping me with flashcards. We're married at this point. We've been married a couple years now. Got married right as I was getting off probation of patrol. Best decision I've ever made, by the way. Like by far the best decision I've ever made up to that point. And things are good, man. Like she's a teacher. I'm a cop. We have our own house. We're married. I'm about to start my process of making it onto the SWAT team or testing to go to the SWAT team. Been preparing a ton, shooting a ton, going to firearms courses, all this stuff. She's pregnant. And it's crazy like how things work, man. Like that morning I wake up super early to make my way down to our academy to start our testing process, or our selection process for our SWAT team. She wakes up with me, and she's had a miscarriage, right? So again, it's like another thing. I'm like, what is happening here, man? Like this has been my goal for a long time. I've been working hard. She's been helping me. We're farther along, like in this pregnancy, like we were supposed to be safe, and then this happens that morning. So again, man, like my brain is somewhere else. Like I'm telling her like, hey, I'm not going. I'm just going to stay here. I'll text them. I'll take care of it next year. She's like, absolutely not. Like you put too much time and effort into this. We've sacrificed too much. Like this is what you want. Like this is like, you got to go get it. Like you staying here right now is not going to help anything that's already happened. And that was super like conflicting moment. End up going, brain's there the whole way. Do decent in the testing process. We go to shoot a qual. Dude, and it sucks, man. I'm high in some of my shots. Don't get a lot of points. And the whole time I'm just thinking about this, man. Like how is the timing of this like real? And you always think when the hardships happen to you, like it's worse than it is for anyone else, right? And you get into that mentality where you're like, geez, dude, I just don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Is this part of the plan? For me, like God's not in the picture at this point. There's questions of God, but there's not a reliance on him, if that makes sense. I haven't accepted like Jesus is way off at that point. End up going through the testing process. It's a couple days, or gosh, I can't even remember at that point what it was. But I end up like after seniority coming out number 5. Not awesome, but good enough to get me onto the team like towards the end of that cycle, right? I got brought over. That I think the testing process was sometime in October. Get brought over in June to the team, and that's where I kind of start my career on the SWAT team. Something I've always wanted to do, man. At that point, my wife was pregnant again. She's about to give birth to our baby in August. I go to the SWAT team in June, and life is crazy. Like, get to the SWAT team, work in a second shift hours, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. I think at that time I had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off. Like, it is busy, but we had such an awesome group of dudes. A lot of us were younger guys, had some senior guys on our squad, senior to the department, maybe newer to the team. But we had one senior guy on the team that was awesome and helped us out a ton. So get there, start rolling. Like, things are going good, man. Like, things are great. Get through like my first couple months. My wife gives birth to our amazing daughter, and things are good, dude. Like, I'm at a point finally where at this point I'm 27, and things are just like going great. Starting to have a lot of more reflection just growing up. Like, I don't know, for those of you that have had kids, like, it's a game changer. It will change your perspective. It will change how you think on life. It will change everything for you, and it 100% did that to me. Go through my career and involved in lots of incidents, man. On the team for 13, 14 years, 13. On a SWAT team for City of Phoenix. For those of you guys that don't know, like 5th biggest city in the country, right? We do a lot of stuff, super busy. You see a lot of stuff, you're involved in a lot of stuff. And just being a dude, like my perspective is kind of twofold on these, right? One of your blessings and burdens is to be a man and carry that stuff. It just is. Doesn't make it easier. I'm just telling you, I think that's what we were designed to do. Like, I think that's your job as a man. But it's also hard, and there's usually not a lot of support in that arena for those things, for different calls, for buddies getting shot, buddies getting killed, you having to kill people, you having to get involved in these engagements, and then go back to normal life, like when your shift's over. It's a weird experience sometimes, man. It's really weird to be involved in something like super crazy. People lose their lives, and the next thing you know, a couple hours later, you're like at a soccer game cheering your kid on. It's a weird thing sometimes. With it being weird though, again, like I said, I believe that as men is like one of the blessings that we are going to be able to do. And this isn't something I realized till later on, right? Because the option for me dealing with it versus someone else, like, okay, if I don't deal with this heaviness, if I don't deal with these burdens now, where's it going to go? I don't want my wife dealing with them. I don't want it passed on to my kids. I don't want them dealing with them. So like that's on my shoulders to take. And you do that. You do that as a cop. You do that as lots of different careers. I think you just do that as men in general. So go through my career. I'm involved in all sorts of different incidents, like pretty much anything you can think of as a cop, we probably had to do on SAU. Meet a lot of awesome people, build a lot of really, really cool relationships, and have some amazing, like lifelong friends because of it. Being married and being in that line of work, as some of you guys know, with those demands and those hours and the time requirement it requires of you to be good at your job is taxing, right? Luckily, I've said it a couple times, like Amanda was a rock and our communication was good. Like not always, like there's definitely times, like I remember times like I would get off on a Saturday night at 1 a.m. and I'd be leaving Sunday morning at 7 to go shoot a match somewhere. Like, because I needed like some decompression time, and 2, like I needed to stay on top of things. Like for me, that job was never like a lackadaisical thing. It was never something where I could just be like, it's okay if I don't keep my skill set up. It's okay if I'm in the bottom half of the group. Like, no, like that was never a standard for me, whether it was football, shooting, being a SWAT cop, like those things were just not options. So having those time demands, having 2 phones, having 2 cars everywhere, getting called out, going to places, like always dealing with things was not always easy. But we worked through stuff, we processed stuff. And that's something you guys will see me talk about on the show is marriage and how to be successful and things that we've screwed up and things that we've done. So make my way kind of through my career, end up retiring, end up moving on. At that point, I'm not sure really where things are going. I started making knives back in 2011. That's when I started MilMac because I wanted a good quality fixed blade that wasn't like $600, man. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I'd always used to do stuff. I don't know if any of you guys were ever into like off-road racing or roll cages or Baja bumpers or stuff like that, but I used to weld and do some of that stuff. But I wanted a knife. I wanted a knife that I could trust, and I didn't have freaking $400, $500, $600 laying around. So I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure I can make one of these. So I started making knives, started doing some of those things, Guys on the team started asking me for them. I had some other buddies just through relationships that I built that were in the military, that were on other SWAT teams throughout the country that started wanting knives. And that's kind of how MilMac started. So I had progressed to like, hey, being a SWAT cop, and now I'm a business owner while I'm a SWAT cop, and some of the things that are happening there. And it was like a super interesting progression because they are the underlying, I would say, like attributes that you have to have as a man to be successful as a SWAT officer, as a father, as a husband, are the same things you have to have as a business owner, man. Like you have to have the ability to not quit. You have to have the ability to carry heavy burdens and do that over a long period of time. You have to have the ability to want to see things through from where you start to the end to get there. And you also have to understand, like, there's never really an end. Like you are just continually to keep working and trying to progress and trying to get better and trying to improve your quality of life until you get there. At the end of my career, I ended up finding my faith. I had a good buddy that was actually one of my brother's friends from high school. That was kind of my mentor. I had been pulling, I just always felt like a pull to God. Even all the things that happened, like there was always that question of what's there? What's going on? But I was like super resistant, man. I'm like, I got this. I can do this on my own. I don't need some higher power. I don't need Jesus to help me. Like I'm good. I got this. And then I think like through all the events that happened, had some buddies get hurt, had some situations happen that were horrible. Like it really, like it tests you as a dude. And for me, it made me question things, but I also felt that pull to come near, and just like, hey, like have faith and take a step. So I ended up like towards the end of my career, I ended up getting baptized. And that has been like best decision I've made. Like having the ability to know that God is there for you always, like, in that you can look back on your life and like you can see the building blocks and the puzzle pieces and how they're fitting together to put you where you are is like a pretty amazing experience, man. And that's kind of where we are now, like, raising kids, got a wife. MilMac is doing awesome. We're growing every year. Like we're hiring employees. The business is doing great. But I still always feel a little struggle. And that's what this podcast is going to be about, man. It's talking about those struggles.